War Report family, what's up? It's your man, Ike Jones. We are going to talk a little bit about quarterback room. What's Auburn going to do now that the transfer portal is open? Let's drop it on them.
This is your Auburn Sports Morning Drop, brought to you by the Rogue Shop and powered by the War Report.
Yes, indeed. The Morning Drop, your man, Ike Jones, Mike G here. We are here just to talk a little bit about Day 2, transfer portal, December 6th, 2022. And man, portal season is alive. It's an animal breathing out here, consuming scholarships and spitting out the bones of third string players. It's just out here doing all kinds of nasty deeds. And Auburn, not a lot of activity so far, but we definitely want to talk about some things that have transpired over the last 24 hours. How you feeling this morning, Mike G?
Pretty good. Listen, we learned yesterday that Zach Calzada entered the transfer portal. Now, I'm not sure this was a huge shock to anybody that he entered the transfer portal. He was hurt most of the season, actually opted out of playing earlier this season.
Right.
But there have been some interesting rumors about him going back to Texas A&M and just some stuff going on there. But I think it's a signal, Ike, that, again, there's a new regime in town, and some guys don't feel comfortable about where they're going to land in the pecking order with this coach and in this system, and some guys do. So I know we're going to get into it, but quarterback room is going to be an interesting topic here over the next few months as we get into spring practice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see because it's clear at this point in time we're going to get a transfer quarterback in here. The question now is how many, right? Like I thought one for sure, with not knowing whether or not Zach Calzada was going to stay. Now I think maybe two, right? Like you can't walk into the season with three. Like, so, all right. So you're going to have Robbie Ashford for sure, right? You're Holden Garner. All signs point to him staying right now, which we'll talk about that in just a second. But then that's it, right? Like you might get a freshman come in that you get, but you got to bring in one more guy. But I would think you want to go into the season with four, maybe at least into spring with 4 or 5 guys that you could have at the quarterback position, right? And so maybe you're going to bring in 2 guys now that Zach Calzada is not in the room. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen.
Oh, and we haven't even talked about TJ Finley. I have no clue what's going on with TJ right now, right? So,
my understanding with TJ is that young man was dealing with some stuff, so we want to respect his privacy
for sure.
Him and his family, and we wish all these players the best, no matter where they land. At the end of the day, college football is a game. It's a business, but it's a game. And so I would think that, again, you're going to bring in some quarterbacks. Now, the rumor was that Hugh Freeze is looking to bring in a quarterback he's familiar with to compete and possibly run this offense. Now, I'll tell you, they've been parading Robbie Ashford around like he's the heir apparent since the end of the season.
It's definitely his job right now to lose. Right. If and people hear me say stuff like that, and during the offseason, I said that last year about TJ, it's his job to lose. I'm saying the same thing about Robbie. It's Robbie's job to lose right now.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Listen, it doesn't mean that he can't lose it. So I don't want anybody hearing that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I'm not anointing him as a starter day one. I'm just saying if they were to trot out a depth chart today, Robbie's name would be a QB1.
Yeah, for sure. So that being said, he's looking to bring another guy in who is a little bit more familiar with the way that he wants to do things. Now, Robbie Ashford is very happy about this move to Hugh Freeze. So I assume anybody that they bring in would be, but you got to have a backup plan in the SEC. We kind of talked about this yesterday, Ike. If you only got one guy, you're already screwed.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, how many teams went to their backup quarterback for significant time this year to save the season? And last year as well, too. I mean, it's becoming a more common occurrence in college football.
For sure.
So we need more than one guy who can do the job. Is that Holden Garner? I'm looking forward to seeing what that young man can do with his arm. But question, is he prototypical Hugh Freeze material?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid question. Here's the thing that I don't know about Holden. I've literally never seen him attempt to run. I saw him attempt to escape pressure a couple of times. And what was that, the Missouri game when he came in for Robbie? And didn't have the escapability that you would like. But I don't know how he runs. And, with the RPO scheme that Hugh Freeze employs, a portion of that RPO, literally the very first word is run,
Mm.
right? So it's not just handing the ball off and or throwing the ball. Sometimes you want to have the threat of the QB to be able to go pick up some yards for you. So the question is whether or not Holden Gardner can do that. And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, running away from kids on high school film isn't the same as running away from these
All
linebackers and
SEC
defensive
linebackers,
ends.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little different proposition. So yet to be seen, but I do like the prospects of him throwing the football because every time I've seen him throw the ball, it looks really good.
He looks competent. He looks like a competent passer. The question is going to be, are they going to be able to fortify this offensive line long, enough for him to be effective as a quarterback in Hugh Freeze's system? Does Hugh have some creative things that he can put in for a less mobile QB to move around the pocket and not get murdered behind this offensive line? So I mean, it sounded like Calzada earlier this year made a business decision based on this offensive line.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I'm getting over an injury. I'm about to risk it all for this.
Yeah.
So
not mad at it either.
No, I'm not mad at it either. So, is Holden looking at it and saying, you guys need one more year to get this line together? Or does Hugh Freeze somehow patch together an offensive line that he can be effective by? Because I do think you changed the offenses pretty significantly going from Robbie Ashford to Holden Gardner, do you not?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that there is the threat of the run of Robbie Ashford creates a very different proposition for defenses to try to figure out. And I think it's interesting to note that if both of those guys are in the quarterback room, then I have to figure that the offensive playbook is going to look drastically different when both when one are out. And I don't want to get back into a two quarterback thing. I don't want to go back to those things.
Yeah, fair.
Apparently, just kind of pivoting real quick, Colby Wooden declared for the NFL draft. Well, we're not talking quarterbacks today, but that's an interesting thing to note. Our defensive line is already taking a bunch of hits. Colby Wooden decided he is going to go to the NFL. Not surprising, really. I thought that was pretty much where he was going to go, just listening to him talk at the end of the season. But definitely wanted to give props to young Colby Wooden. Best of luck to him in his future endeavors as an NFL prospect.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, kind of moving back to quarterback here. This is no longer, you're picking up scraps in the portal.
Yeah. There's guys out there.
There's guys out there. There are dynamic. I mean, a guy who jumped in the portal last year is in the room for the Heisman this year.
Yeah.
So there's significant talent in the portal if the situation and the circumstances are right for that player. And Auburn has to become a premier destination for that level of talent. They'll say, hey, I want to take my talents there because I can win a Heisman there in that system with those players at that school with those coaches. So, watch Caleb Williams do it going from, Oklahoma to USC. Now it helped that he was following his coach.
Right. Yeah.
So he's following somebody who was really familiar with his game and what he does effectively. But, I mean, he was kind of mid at Oklahoma last year. He was better than Spencer Rattler, but he was kind of mid. And look at him, man. I mean, the Pac-10 is quarterback. Like, if you want to revive your career as a quarterback, you go to the Pac. That's where you go, where they don't play pass defense and DBs, give Christmas gifts to the wide receivers every play. Like, they don't play any defense in that league. But you still got to go out there and throw the ball and make good passes. And he certainly did that. So, I see some of you talking about the kid from Clemson.
Yeah.
Right.
Ramon jumps in here with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. He said, thoughts on DJ?
See, now, again, do we believe that Hugh Freeze can do something with DJ that Dabo could not?
I mean, listen, Hugh Freeze thinks that he can do something with any quarterback. I think
that's true.
The question is,
do we believe it?
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if fans believe that necessarily. I have not. I mean, absent of the one game his freshman year against Notre Dame where he came in, I've not seen anything from him that I was super impressed by. I actually commented on this when I watched him play. B. Will always is the beneficiary of me complaining about things I see during games because I'm happy to be watching him in Auburn with him, and I was like, he can't throw the deep out. Like, he misses it every single time. He misses high. And so then during that Notre Dame game, I was like, oh, there's some flaws in his game that are out there, right? He's got to work on these things mechanically to be able to throw this more proficiently. He can hit this thing, but he can't hit this throw. There's a lot of things that need to be done for quarterbacks to be able to, but I mean, listen, we can say some things about Robbie Ashford and his ability to throw certain routes. I think that he throws the out route a little bit too late and behind receivers, right? Like
Mhm.
I can critique a lot of quarterbacks' games, but can they improve? Absolutely. I just don't know. My worry with a DJ Uyunglele, and yes, I like pronouncing his entire last name because I actually can,
Yeah.
is that
Weird
some of the
flex, but okay.
yeah, it's just like, hey, if you could do it, do it.
Mhm.
It's I just think
Mhm.
I just wonder if some of the things that are baked into who he is right now manifest themselves regardless of how much you coach him, right? Like he's been through a couple of years of tutelage and still hasn't been able to get it right. But that's not to say that he can't have the light come on. I just don't know if we're there yet. We're going to get to some of these chats that we have coming in here. But just as a reminder, you guys are watching the morning drop here, sponsored by Rogue Shop. You guys
Rogue
head over
shop.
to rogueshop.com. Use code RAPPORT for all of your herbal supplement needs. Tell them the guys the War Report sent you by using that code. We appreciate the Rogue Shop for continuing to support. And we appreciate all of you who are supporters of the War Report. If you're here watching the show right now and you can't chat, it's because we do restrict our morning drops to members only. It's just another perk of being a member of the War Report. We just like having family conversations in the morning time. You don't want to wake up talking to trolls. We can talk to the trolls later, but during the morning you want to talk to your family. So if you are a part of the War Report family, we appreciate it. Even if you're a subscriber and you haven't paid monthly, that's fine. But if you are a monthly supporter, we appreciate that. And the perks are right here on the screen. We'll have some more film review stuff coming up for you guys here soon. But let's pivot Mike G here and talk to the guys in the chat a little bit. We appreciate T Moultrie for jumping in with the super chat saying War Damn Eagle, excuse me, working graveyard. Finally get to watch live. Brutal,
The
but do
graveyard
definitely
shift.
appreciate you jumping in with us this morning.
Yes, sir.
Todd Jordan, there's a conversation going on about this started with the Holden Garner comments about whether or not he could run. And people were saying that you need to be able to run in this era of football. And
Right.
so the modern college football calls for a mobile quarterback is the question from Todd Jordan. What are your thoughts there on this one here?
Yeah, listen. He won't win the Heisman, but he should, and his name is Stetson Bennett. Impressively one of the best quarterbacks. And when you look at his highlight reel, that kid was underrated athletic. He was out there literally juking kids out their shoes in the red zone. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? Who is this guy? This guy was a walk-on.
Yeah,
But
I don't know that anybody would term Stetson Bennett as a dual threat quarterback.
Dual threat QB, but he's just dangerous enough with his legs that you have to account for it, or he's going to burn you. And I think that modern college football, Todd, calls for at least a quarterback somewhat in that mold, where you can use your legs to get out of trouble, but you're not depending on it. Let me tell you what, like the pure pocket passer, I think is a dying thing in college football. Now, when I went to sleep last night, the Bucks were losing to the Saints 17-3 with 3 minutes left.
And Tom Brady did Tom Brady thing.
When I woke up this morning, they won by a point.
Yeah.
Because the best pocket passer of all time did his thing. And it requires a lot. I mean, our kids are learning at the Tom Brady level how to read defenses, thinking their way through the game like a Peyton Manning, where even pre-snap, you already know where the holes in the defense are going to be. I feel like that part of the game is dying, which is why you need at least a semi-mobile QB, because these guys in that final fraction of a second, they're not able to think their way through with their arm. They just take off running. And either you can or you can't. So if we get a guy who can think his way through, I'm all about it, because he's going to be even more dangerous.
Yeah, I think, and this is the part that I want to highlight of what you said. The arm talent is important. The athleticism is important. But the most important quality for the quarterback is the cerebral component.
Right.
Like Tom Brady doesn't have the best arm in the world. Tom Brady is not the best runner in the world. You could say the same thing for a lot of quarterbacks that have been great over the years. Peyton Manning, not athletic, right? Didn't have the most arm. Like there are guys with better arm talent than both Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. But people consider those to be some of the best quarterbacks that have ever, because from the mental standpoint, they understand the game. Right. They understand the touch needed to put on this throw, the zip needed to put on this throw, the read to make against this defense. That's what's most important. So people are falling in love. And I have this conversation. If you guys listen to the podcast, I do a thing called the Amen Corner. We have this conversation about quarterbacks all the time. And people in the NFL and even in fan circles fall in love with the physical qualities of quarterbacks, the athletic abilities of their arm talent and their legs, and forget some of these guys can't make reads, so it doesn't matter.
Correct.
You can have all the arm talent in the world, and you can be the best runner in the world, but if you don't know when to utilize those talents, none of that matters.
Well, you have to take that part out of the game for them, and you have to rely more on their athleticism.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, in the game's final 2 minutes against premier defenses in the SEC, that doesn't work.
Correct.
Right.
Because they're waiting on it.
They're waiting on it. They know you're going to run. And so when you go up against Kirby Smart's defense, you need to be able to throw the ball, and you need to be able to be pinpoint accurate versus a perfectly defended play.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to be a champion as a quarterback these days in college football. Those guys who are champions are making plays no matter what the defense is.
Yeah. And I understand, because of the deficiencies in our offensive line, we've thought, oh, we have to have someone who's mobile. But I think that mobility needs to be a tool in your bag. It doesn't need to be the only tool, though. But let's talk a little bit more with the chat here. We appreciate you guys jumping in here. Chris Sanders says less than 50% of NFL QBs have their legs as a threat. I think that that's a changing thing, Chris.
He's saying greater than,
excuse me, have their legs as a threat. I think it's changing. Like, the mold of quarterback is just changing completely, though. Like, mobility is becoming more and more of an NFL caliber thing. Right. It's just the guys who are mobile and can throw. Right. Like, you're not and this is going to sound like I'm saying Lamar Jackson can't throw, and that's not true.
Right.
But if you're an elite thrower, and I don't think anybody would call Lamar Jackson elite as a thrower, and you can use your legs a la Patrick Mahomes, right, then you get into a whole different category. And I think people want to try to recreate what they see with some of these QBs, and everybody doesn't have that in their bag to go to.
Well, let me put it this way. The more elite you are at one thing, the less elite you have to be at the other thing.
Yeah.
To balance the equation, right? So, Lamar Jackson is an elite athlete, period. He's faster than most of the guys on the football field. He can break tackles. He can do a lot of things that over half the other NFL QBs can't do. Now, Robbie Ashford, I'm looking at him in the same mold. He's got elite athleticism. He's going to be more athletic than most of the people chasing him on defense. Easily, right? If he can add the cerebral part to the game about reading defenses and then rely only on his legs when a play truly breaks down, he's going to be unstoppable.
Correct.
Right? So, that maturation process is something that we have to keep an eye on for quarterbacks like Robbie Ashford, right? How is he picking up the part of the game that he is not elite at? So that he can become a more well-rounded QB, and defenses have to account for everything.
Yeah, and we see the arm talent on display from Robbie Ashford in spurts. Even with the hurt arm or the hurt shoulder, you see his ability to be able to do those things. So the question is, and this is the same question I have for most quarterbacks, and if you've watched the War Report before, then this is the thing that we talk about all the time. It's raising your floor, right? Like, the ceiling for Robbie Ashford, I don't know that we've even approached it yet.
Yeah,
we've got to figure out how to rate, or not we, but Robbie needs to figure out how to raise his floor so that the worst you're going to get from him is a 60% completion day. But if he's on that day, you're going to get 80% and 200 yards passing, 100 yards on the ground. You're going to get elite, oh my God, eye-popping stats from him. But if on a bad day, you're going to get, he's not going to throw the ball a bunch. He's going to run for it a little bit, but he's just going to make timely throws when you need him to. And that's the most that you can hope for from any quarterback, is their floor doesn't put you in the basement.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's see what else we got going on here in the chat. Young KL says, how do we feel about the QB from Georgia Tech?
How do we feel about any QB from Georgia Tech?
Well, so I don't know which of the Georgia Tech QBs it was.
Yeah, because they started with a guy who got hurt. I think his name was Zach Pyron.
Yeah. The guy who I watched Georgia Tech play in the Georgia game, if that's the guy, I liked him. I liked what I saw from him. He's got a lot of moxie. He can make throws. He's got some athleticism. He's the kind of guy I think that could fit into a Hugh Freeze system. I don't know which guy it was, though.
Right. I don't know. You got to just clarify, young KL, whether you're talking about Pyron or Jeff Sims.
Yeah, because I haven't looked at. I'd be lying to you if I told you I watched Georgia Tech games last year.
I actually did. Like I said, I just got to know which QB you're talking about here, because they had a guy who got hurt at the end of the season and missed the last 2 games. I'm not sure which one of those guys is in the portal. I'm assuming that it's Pyron, but we'll see, because usually it's the hurt player that didn't finish the season. It's like, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach.
Yeah.
So
John Brandon jumps in here with another chat. Said most current offenses at national contenders have at least semi-mobile QBs.
This is facts, man. I mean, okay, let's do a little experiment, Ike.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna look at the AP top 25 poll
Mm-hmm.
for football, right? And when you look at the teams that are at the top, right? Georgia, semi-mobile. The kid from Michigan, semi-mobile.
Yeah.
Right? TCU,
Yeah.
semi-mobile.
I mean, listen,
Right?
he was shredding him at the end of that game with his leg. But
Mm-hmm.
he's the kind of guy that you talk about where it's like you don't think of him as a runner, but if you don't guard him, he'll take off for 60.
It can take off on you, right?
Yeah.
Ohio State, right?
Yes.
CJ Stroud, semi-mobile.
Yeah.
But throws a ton of touchdowns. Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's arguing that Bryce Young is not semi-mobile. Tennessee, Hendon Hooker. Again, a guy who could burn you with his legs. I mean, that's just the top 6.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to compete, you do. I think this is the way college football is going. So, I mean, the top 6 examples all have semi-mobile QBs.
Yeah, I think you would struggle to find a quarterback who is considered not mobile.
Right.
And has a successful career.
Correct.
Like, I mean, we can do the exact same thing you did and go look at NFL quarterbacks, and I can tell you the vast majority of teams have a quarterback now, as the previous comment said, that they can run a little bit. They might not be elite Robbie Ashford level runners, but they can run a little bit, and you kind of just have to be able to do that because defenses are just so fast now.
Yeah.
Like you can have the best blockers in the world. Every now and then you're just going to have an elite pass rusher that's coming up against you, and that guy needs to be able to escape who's sitting back there in the pocket. So Ben Bloodworth, appreciate the chat, jumps in. Looks like we officially offered Ra-Ra. So Ra-Ra Thomas, again, is the Mississippi State wide receiver that entered the transfer portal. I think that this is definitely, listen, as far as receivers go, we lost 2 of them currently in the transfer portal between Zaylen Worsham and Xavier Capers.
Yeah.
So that room is already thinned out a little bit. So we do have some space to bring another receiver in. You could do worse than Ra-Ra Thomas. I can definitely.
Yeah. Oh, listen, we're talking quarterbacks. They need somebody to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
So I'm all about this move. I like that they're going out to get Ra-Ra.
So apparently, I see somebody jump in here and says it is Sims from Georgia Tech. Thomas Jones says Sims from Georgia Tech is the one that is in the portal.
All right. So he's the one that finished the season last year. And, maybe that young man felt like, hey, man, I'm Power 5 starting quality. So I'm out of here. Somebody will pick me up. I hope it works out for him. At the end of the day, we've kind of noted on our podcasts and our shows that a lot of these guys who hop in the portal end up not finding homes, and those failure stories don't get talked about enough about what a risk it is to jump into the portal.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely not a you're not guaranteed anything getting into the portal. You have to figure out whether or not that's the best option for you. And I think a lot of the unfortunate reality is in the age of NIL, and yes, I'm talking about Texas A&M, kids get sold a dream when they go to a school about what they're going to be, what the potential is going to be for them in earning something when they're at school off the bat. And then they don't see the field. And then they realize, okay, that NIL check is cool and everything, but I do actually want to go play football. Right. Like I want to see the field. I want to be in a position and they went and they started seeing the bag before they saw the ball.
They saw the bag before they saw the ball. Yeah. That's a ball. That's a bar right there.
Yeah. Listen, you can't do it in that order, man. You got to see. And, I know it's, he who should not be named here in Auburn circles right now, but that's what our former coach was preaching is like, look, it's ball first.
Right.
We'll worry about the bag later. But we need to see about this ball. Like, do you fit what we're trying to do?
Right.
Do you fit from a cultural standpoint? Because otherwise, you're going to be miserable here.
Right.
So, anyway, appreciate those chats there. We got another super chat here from Reggie saying UGA offered Ra-Ra yesterday.
No surprise there. Listen, you're going to have to win some of these battles.
Yeah.
With UGA.
Anybody who's talented will get offered by a top contending program. Thanks. Everybody, listen, Chris Todd said it. Every year, they're looking to upgrade.
Yeah, they're looking for somebody better than you.
Yeah.
Every year. Now, are they handcuffing here at UJ? Is this a handcuff move? Like, we may not want them that bad, but we don't want you to have them.
Possibly. But listen, he's talented. I don't know that anybody who is the like scary receiver on the UGA roster where you're like, oh, you can't leave that dude. I don't know who that is, right? Like they're super balanced. I mean, but you think about their tight ends when you think about scary pass catching talent. You don't think about wide receiver. And Ra Thomas is one of those guys who, when he lines up out there, you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, that's a guy. That's a dude right there. So I don't know. James McAlpine jumps in with a chat, says, if you're reading this, this means my subscription payment cleared. James, we appreciate that.
It's the little things in life. The payment cleared. I got paid today.
Yeah, right, man. We definitely appreciate all of you. Again, if you are not able to comment here in the morning drop, it's because you're not a member of the War Report. And that membership isn't a lot of money per month, but it does help us continue to do the things that we're doing right here. So make sure you are locked in with that. A couple more chats here before we get out of here. James McAlpine does jump back in here and he says, dual threat or single threat seems like a no-brainer. You want a QB that can beat you in more than one way. In more ways than one, excuse me. But yes, that's absolutely the case. You don't want your QB to limit your ability to do things offensively, especially when you have the type of offense that Hugh Freeze runs, where it's going to be about tempo. It's going to be about leverage. You want to have a guy who can, what they call, and I heard them use this term a lot with Caleb Williams when I was watching the Pac-12 championship. He's what they call an eraser. Right. You've got a bad play, and he can just get you out of a bad play just because. And here's the thing. You can be an eraser more than just athletically. You can be an eraser for, I see something defensively. Let me get us into something differently because I saw it and I'm on the same page with my receivers. Or, hey, they beat the guy off the end, or they brought more guys than we can block. I can just run around these guys and go get 15 yards because there's nobody at the second level now. Right? Yeah, you need an eraser.
That reminds me of a popular like golf thing we like to say on the golf course, like the most powerful thing I have in my bag is the pencil, because I can change the score with it, yeah. Right? And I think it's a good analogy, a parallel to what you're talking about, because a good QB is changing the scoreboard. He's flipping the scoreboard on you. He's like, that ain't right. Let me, right? We're in the lead. So, I mean, you got to have that from your QB these days. I like it.
Yeah. One last one here before we get out of here. James Stallings, appreciate the super chat. We offered the FIU transfer 6'5" tight end. Yes, we have put some offers out there. I think the first one was a big guy, that tight end. And from his tape, he looks like he could definitely be a monster out there. So they're already getting to work. We have a lot more things that we can discuss tomorrow. We'll probably get a little bit more into the coordinator stuff. Any final word from you, Mike G, before we get out of here today?
Listen, we started off talking QB. We got into your questions, so I appreciate all the super chats and questions. End of the day, Auburn's got to have a quarterback. They've got a guy that they can depend on. And we can't be talking about question marks at quarterback going into next season. If you're Robbie Ashford, that absolutely means you have to take the next step. You have to evolve from year one as a starter going into year two. So hopefully that young man is putting in the work. I know he's putting in the work. I know him personally. Whether it translates on the field, there's a lot, that goes into that. So, and, if God forbid he gets hurt or he can't go, or doesn't develop, then Hugh Freeze's responsibility is to go out and find a guy who can get the job done and make sure that he's ready. Because we lost our quarterback is no longer an excuse for why you tank the season.
For sure.
It's just not.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody for jumping in here. Once again, you are watching The Morning Drop presented by RogueShop.com. You guys make sure that you lock in with them. We're out of here until tomorrow morning. Holla at y'all. Peace. Bring them up.